switch into the side view of everything. And we're just going to first start again with looking at the front foot strike position. So this is, again, the moment in time when Trinan, front foot, makes contact with the ground. And same thing with AJ over here. Excuse me. Once that front foot gets settled on the ground and the knee braces that weight, and we can see that back foot position and how it's driven away from the rubber. How that back foot is driving away from the rubber, which pushes that back hip forward, which pushes that back hip forward at foot strike. Forward at foot strike. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. We can also notice at front foot strike that the glove is finished or finishing, and we're looking for that 90-ish degree being this is the time that the ball is facing the same direction as your chest. So righty's ball to third, lefty's ball facing first. Belt buckle's turned over. And then we'll watch as we go through the throwing motion how this front knee is going to brace itself. It's going to lock out. It's going to stabilize. It's going to block, whatever term you like to think or categorize it as. But that leg goes from a bend to no bend, from a bend to no bend, in order to help get all that energy that the lower body created and send it up into the arm and not allow it to stay down here in the knee and go forward or roll out. This is what allows us to throw the baseball down and out in front as we rotate around. And that's what allows us to rotate down, out in front and around through release. But we got to be able to start feeling ourselves really getting down. Really getting ourselves down at release and out in front with this forward trunk tilt. Our trunk is from our shoulders to our hips. This mass of our body we call our trunk. We want to be taking our trunk at foot strike is usually pretty close to up and down, and then we got to use our trunk to accelerate this throw down and out in front. When that foot lands in ground at front foot strike, we're usually more up and down, and we need to use that trunk to send that ball down and out in front. Next two examples. Oop, I didn't get Chapman a front foot strike yet. My bad. Okay, so if we watch this back foot, how it's just going to drive away from that rubber. Heel's not trying to come up in the air, it's just trying to turn over. What are we turning over? We're turning over the big toe. Watch this little piece of toe here that's in the light. Should turn over. It folds over. So the crease in the shoe is folding over that big toe so we can drive through it. And that's the movement that gets this back hip to go forward. That's what finally gets the pelvis to start to rotate forward. Gloves finishing, 90-ish degree angle, belt buckle, back hips coming through. Over here, watch that back foot. Through the big toe, through the big toe, through the big toe. Also noticing how long this back knee is staying back. Noticing how long this back knee is staying back. and not constantly going in, down, 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 down as his body's going out. Because if that's the case, his weight's going down and out. We need to try to keep that weight back. We need to try to stay in this back hip so we can drive that back hip. So trying to keep that knee above that back foot as long as we can, as best we can. Then when we can't, then it's time to start to rotate. Boom. So then now the knee is strong, and we can see how it's locking out, locking out, locking out. We land at foot strike, and we can see knee holding strong, trying to lock out. Okay. Some more here. Kershaw. Back foot. Boom. Back foot. Boom. Back hip. Go forward. Back hips facing first. Start going forward. Start going forward with the back hip. All because the back foot's doing that. Get the knee to do that, which pushes and drives the pelvis forward. Gloves getting to finish. Arms in that 90-ish. Shoulders have not rotated yet. Shoulders have not rotated yet. Gloves starting to finish. Arms in that 90-ish. Back foot. Boom. 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 So we can see all these guys, different heights, different arm slots, different body shapes, different arm slots. But a lot of the same movements with the back leg, because that's the sequence that we need to do in order to get that back hip to start to come forward. So then the throw, boom, out in front and down. Okay. And then we got one more. Jake Arrieta, same thing. Back foot, 90-ish degree. Glove finishing. Belt buckle. Back hip getting forward. We take that back. We watch the back foot. Boom. Boom. So then he can release down and out in front. Leg locking out. Front leg locking out. Front leg locking out. Front leg locking out. Boom. So now we could take a look at all of you guys and at your front foot strike position. I'll give you a moment to try to find where you're at. Take a look. See what's what. And then kind of take notice of your back foot. Does it look like the position that we just kind of saw all those guys and what they looked like at front foot strike? Like here. All right, we want to think about this. Now that we know what kind of mount we're going to be on, we probably should not wear our molds because we're going to be slipping on this a lot. And could that be the reason that this foot kind of kicks out from underneath you right here? Maybe. Or is it just we need to have better ability to drive forward at the end before it kicks out and we don't lose that little bit there? Or is it just simply because we're just molded on that side of that foot and it's just slipping now? And if we had turf and it was leather or rubber, maybe it would stay better. So think about that. But everything else, the way it's moving and wanting to move, is exactly what we're looking for. Boom. folding over that big toe. Okay, so not so much here at all because that heel is just straight up in the sky. Looks like it's wanting to, but didn't have enough time. Looks like it's about to, but didn't have enough time. Not at all. Maybe it wanted to, but just didn't have enough time. When I say didn't have enough time, I mean the front foot hit the ground too soon, or it did not do it soon enough to finish it in time. We got a lot of heel off the ground, but not really anything driving, and we can see because nothing really drove, back hip is still here. It hasn't gone forward yet. Same thing here. Back hip is over here. Hasn't gone forward yet because of the foot just spun in place. Same thing here. Back foot, the heel is just coming off the ground at front foot strike. We haven't done anything with this backside. We haven't driven. So then when we do, we're going to see where it goes. It's going to come this way. We talked about that in the side video. Boom. It's just turning over with the rotation of your upper body. So that means the reason most of your hips are rotating here is because your upper body is forcing it, whether it's this glove side shoulder going this way out that pulls this around to catch up with it, or it's this shoulder coming through that's bringing this hip along with it. But either way, the upper body and the lower body are working at the same time here. So we're going to now let everything play. All right, so then if we just start looking at these one at a time in a little bit more detail, we're going to obviously have to get it a little bit bigger, which is going to take away from some of us to be able to see us the whole time, but I'll continue to alter. So that way, these two guys that are covered right now will be the next two up, while these guys can continue to see theirs play and compare their video to what's being talked about in the big one here. So like we were saying, we're seeing the attempt of that back foot of doing its drive, getting that back hip to start to go forward at front foot strike. We talked about in the first bit about how we're seeing that foot kind of slide, and I'm thinking it could be just because we're in moldy cleats on a very plasticky mound. So again, thinking about getting some athletic shoes or some turf shoes that we come with. That'll help us have more connection here. That's also why there's that duct tape to kind of add a little extra something. But the molds are going to be tough to still get that connection. We see that belt's firing. We're in this good position here. That glove is beginning its finish. All right. But we can just see how that knee then is going to now be slightly in the way. And there's that roll. We can see that knee kind of bowing out. Now it stabilizes. And then it starts to lock out. So we just need to find a way to be able to land with that knee in a better, stronger, more firm position. So that way it doesn't have to swivel so much before it's stable and has the ability to lock out and get out in front. But we still have everything through the upper half and how we're flowing and how we're getting up to here. Like, we're looking pretty good. There's a couple things that we can do to create a little bit more extra power, but we first want to think about this front leg being in a position to support that extra power. So when it comes, this wobble will be more under control in this knee area here. But again, all in all, we're pretty, um, oops, our body is flowing pretty well. So we'll put that here. And we'll make this guy bigger now. Okay. So as we were discussing from the front view, we can see how much of a hunch that body has gotten into here. Yeah, we've gotten the hips out in front, which is something that we definitely want to have occur, so that way we can stay back, like you're getting into this position here of staying back. But then once we land, oops, that's not paused. But once we get into that front foot strike position, we can see that backside just hasn't quite turned over yet. Back hip hasn't quite gotten to go forward yet. And we can also see how much these shoulders have begun to rotate while this front foot is still not yet in the ground. Still not yet in the ground. So once it is in the ground all the way, and this backside does get turned over, we can see how much that upper body has in fact rotated forward, which reduces our upper lower half separation. How much the upper half can remain back while the lower half rotates and drives forward. The more we separate those two, the more effortless power we're going to create. And we can see with how your front leg rotated to get to this position and how the back foot didn't get a chance to turn over yet, until after foot strike. We can see how much our upper body position suffers once we do get a good lower half. So we're just leaving some power out still in our body. We're just leaving some power potential still there. And we can see how this ball is getting released almost, behind or directly above our knee. We want to try to get this ball released out in front as best we can in this type of position with our body. More in this type of position with our body, having that ball come out versus being very much here as that ball's coming out. And that's finding and learning how to throw the ball down this mound. Going down this mound to get acceleration out in front. You kind of see some of these guys up top here getting the ball more out, a little bit more out than you. From there, we can look here. We can look here. And also here with offer. But our most important thing is just getting that lower half to rotate on time. So we're going to have to do some lower body rotational drills. Learn how to rotate that lower body better. A little quicker, a little bit more aggressively. So at front foot strike, our upper body doesn't open up yet. And our back foot just gets a little bit more advanced. Just a little bit more advanced to get that back hip to start to come forward. We're just leaving that back hip back at our front foot strike position. Okay. So we take it to the top here. Like we said, we got to make sure that we're doing something to think about getting another glove because we're not going to be able to rock this all, even though it is a nice, clean, cool looking glove. Can't be wearing a white glove on the mound. It is illegal. We were talking about that front foot in our front view on how it stays closed, and this is a good perspective of it. The heel is closer to the target than the toe is. And the longer our foot stays in this type of position, our knee will stay closed. As soon as this front toe starts to get in front of the heel, as soon as the toe gets in front of the heel, we can see that knee begins to now open, open, open. Okay? And we said the longer we can stay closed, the later we will then open, which means when we do open later, as long as we're able to complete our rotation, because we had made it as late as possible, it will therefore have created as much energy as possible because we completed it in the shortest amount of time. Or we rotate it completely, but we start from like here and just continuously open it up. That's not going to create as much power as close, 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 like you're trying to do here. You're really fighting, and we can see how long you're trying to keep it closed. So from the side view, we can see that you're keeping this front leg a lot closed a lot longer than I initially thought from the front view. So that's a good thing. So we can see then when the front foot does start to open, it just doesn't get the knee to open with it. So now that we got this position with the front foot on the ground, watch, this knee now is going to swivel out. This knee here is swiveling out, swiveling out, swiveling out. All right, we can also see on this back foot how the heel's coming off the ground, heel's coming off the ground, heel's coming off the ground, but yet there's no rotation yet. There's no drive away from the pitching rubber. We're not folding that back foot off of the rubber. We're not folding it away from the pitching rubber. We'll see here folding it away from the pitching rubber more than just having the heel come up, heel come up. Because now when we go to rotate and drive, watch how this back foot is just going to spin right in place. Boom. 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 And now by the time the back foot gets into a position that can get the back hip to start to go forward, we can see then how much that upper body has had to rotate. So we're just missing out on a little bit of that power production or power potential. We need to understand that if our heel spins up and backwards, up, yours doesn't go backwards, yours just spins up. If it spins up, we're not able to drive our body forward. And we can see we're just kind of staying in place here. Versus someone that is going to get the back foot, back knee to start to drive, and watch when the back foot does its movement, how the whole body goes forward. The whole body goes forward. It's gaining ground during that drive. Versus back foot kind of just spinning. So we need to really feel this back leg, specifically our back hip muscles, driving our body away from the pitching rubber. So doing things like skaters and side lunges are going to be something that's going to really help your body understand how to activate those hip muscles and how to use them in a side-to-side or linear fashion. Because outside of that, the glove's path is pretty darn good. The arm's path, in the way that it separates and loads and scap loads and gets into this position here, is all real good stuff. The upper body is really good, but the lower body starts everything, and the upper body can only be as good and as clean and as powerful as the lower body sets it up to be. And we know we can't start throwing until this front foot hits the ground. So now that this foot hits the ground, now it's time to throw, which means we want to try to minimize how much movement this front leg is doing, because we want to throw over a strong, stable, sturdy front leg, not a front leg that's rotating and moving as our upper body is also trying to rotate and move. we want that to be more strong and stable like it gets here as we do all of our upper body rotation. So we just got more power potential left in us, and we have more ability to throw this ball more down and out in front of us with more power and aggressiveness still. So back foot learning how to drive will be a big key for us. All right, so let's get some of these that were playing the whole time off. Boom, boom. Okay, so then you three will be our next ones that we do. So, doing a really good job trying to keep this back knee back. So then when we go to rotate, that knee can slam in aggressively, turning that foot over, which then ultimately, like we've been saying, drives this back hip forward. Back hip starting to get forward. Back hip starting to get forward. But what we can see is that front foot hits just a little early. Or another way to think about it is this back foot, back knee, back side hip is just a little late in when it started. So that way we could get maybe just this, let's go maybe like this. Maybe we could get this amount of energy out of our back foot and then the foot hits the ground, as opposed to the foot hitting the ground now, then that drive in the backside really happening. Okay, so we can think one of two things: keep the front foot off the ground for a split second longer, or when you start to feel your back foot, back knee start to drive and rotate, have that process begin a split second sooner. Either way, we'll be able to accomplish this backside getting to do this movement, boom, then foot hit the ground. Instead of it doing this movement, foot's hitting the ground, then this good drive happens. We can just see how much extra that back hip goes with this movement here. And if we could just have this foot being off the ground during that time and then hit, we can use all that extra power. We would also hopefully then assume, or want to assume, that the upper body would still want to be more in this position here where it's getting when you first get in a foot strike. So imagine the upper body is here, while the lower body would get to here. How much extra tension would be built up if this upper body was still back this way, back rotated. Then we release it, and how much extra rotation that upper body would be able to get to go through, creating more power, more aggressiveness, ultimately more whip and power running through your arm, out through your hand. So again, there's that real good smooth pattern with that leg going up with the glove, nice and smooth with it. We're very close. There's a lot of really good positive things going on in your delivery here, bud. Like I said, it's just more or less timing. Your body does the things that we want it to do. It's just we need a little bit more time to be able to complete the process of the lower body's movements. So that way it can be in just a little bit stronger of a position at front foot strike, which will give us a little bit more power in our fastball, which would then give us even the opportunity for more spin potentially on our fastball, which elevates its movement. And that's just benefits with fastballs, let alone all the benefits that could be added with our off-speed pitches as well. So this kind of is good to go right after, because you were also the guy that wanted to show some initiative of the hands wanting to move with the leg lift, but we can kind of just see how they just don't quite seem to be in agreement. And it's almost the hands start to stop going up early, and that's what's stopping the leg from wanting to keep going up? Maybe. Or is it just timed out perfectly? That's where you know the leg's not going any higher. So then the hands that have gone maybe too high start to come down to catch back up. Either way, I'm not saying we need to change it. It's just something that's unique to you that we may not have noticed before that you may want to smoothen out, or you just keep it the same. Another guy does a really good job of keeping that back knee back until it's time to drive, But what we saw in the front view is, unfortunately, this front foot isn't doing any rotation of its own, and that's why the foot's hitting the ground here before the backside can even begin to rotate. So we get that foot flat into the ground, and we're here now. Now we can see things in the lower half are starting to rotate, but by the time they actually finally get rotated, ball's out. And that's what we notice as well from the front view. So if we just got your backside to be there, and then we kind of went back over here and pulled Brown's back up. Okay. And we said that his was good, but he could go just a little bit sooner with the backside or keep the front foot off the ground a little bit longer. But if we just look at the position that the back foot is in, and the position your back foot is in, is very similar positions. The hips also are in very similar positions as well. But we can notice how much more your shoulders had to rotate, or how much more time needed to occur for your backside to get here, that your body now is in this position when his is in this position. So then if we just let yours play through from here and just say this is how much power you have after your front foot gets in the ground and we're strong and stable with the lower body, that's my power versus that's my power. And you see there's more rotation coming from Brown's, where we know that's probably going to help us achieve more upper body strength and power. So we just need to feel the front leg not just getting put down when it's still kneecap facing third base dugout. We need kneecap to get facing target. We need foot to start rotating a little bit more than it is. Not saying it has to be completely straight to the target. It can still be slightly closed off, but if our knee can't get more in line with the target without the foot rotating more, then we need to do both. But ultimately, we need to get this kneecap so that way when it gets to here, this is where it's landing more or less. So that way it doesn't have to swivel out to here just to get our lower body in a position that will allow our upper body the space to throw this ball down and out. Because now that the lower body has created that space needed for the upper body to throw the ball down and out, we don't have very much time left to throw the ball besides, boom, there. But like we said, from the front view, your upper body gets into such a good position at front foot strike right here, though. This upper body is so good and strong at this point in time that even though the lower body is not ideal and is not in a position that's going to help you throw harder than what your upper body allows, the upper body is getting every last drip of power that it can possibly create, you're getting. If there was any flaws in what this position was like at this front foot strike position, of your maximum amount of power, you would never be getting quite there of what the upper body can produce. But so luckily for you, you're getting 100 out of 100 power potential with your upper half, but we're getting like 0 out of 100 with our lower body, which then lowers the upper body down by like 15. Instead of the upper body being at 100 and the lower body being at 100, which would then give the upper body 200. Something kind of like that is the way to think about it. But upper body's real good. Back knee stays back real well. Now it's just learning how to actually fire those knees in a rotational manner to get hips to fire and to get back hip, most importantly, to come forward and through. All right, so here's our opportunity to see from the side and how quickly, like we're talking, this back shoulder, yeah, we want to keep our weight back, but you're taking this back shoulder and we're dipping it down and behind, down, So now our shoulders are almost, one's down, one's almost straight up. And now we have this big angle here, and now the butt's popped out. Okay? Will this position here ultimately have a chance to transform into a really good, strong power position? Yeah, for sure. But we're going to have to be a very certain type of athlete to be able to move the amount of body mass, the amount of body weight that you have from this type of position is going to be a very tough ask, a very tough task. So as we see, we continue to go, okay, and now we get to about like right here, okay. Is this a really good power position? Yes. Chin is behind belt buckle. We're looking over top of the shoulder because we're staying closed here, okay. We still are sitting into this back hip really well, but the longer we sit into that back hip, the later we have the ability to drive it out, which means we're going to have to be very, very strong and very, very quick with driving this hip that we've been sitting in and starting to get to come forward by the time this front foot hits the ground. And we can see the heel's making contact, foot's in the ground, and the back hip wants to. It wants to, but this foot just has not quite turned over. And if we get it a little bit bigger for you, we can see that it doesn't quite turn over until now. Now that back hip really gets out. Heel's in the ground, foot's in the ground. Back hip has not driven forward yet. Knee hasn't completely turned over yet. Back foot hasn't turned over yet. Now knee is turning over. Now back foot is driving forward and through. Now we're getting this hip into a really good position, but we can see how much this upper body sacrificed itself in order to get there. Okay, and before we continue with too much other guys' videos, let's pull up some other guys to do some comparisons to, because we can do, actually I think Casimir would be pretty good. So if we look at these two positions right here, I'd say they're probably really rather similar of what's trying to be accomplished. Trying to stay closed, sitting back in the hip, sitting back in the hip. But we notice is if we reverse it, where it's starting from and how it's getting there. The hips are gaining momentum to get him into this position, whereas your shoulders are just kind of dropping down. Now the hips start to get a little bit of momentum. Okay? Then as we proceed, both of you guys are holding that angle. And then your heel is just about on the ground, his heel is just about on the ground. Feet are in relatively similar positions, but watching this next frame of Scott's here, how that foot turned over versus it's kind of just heel just lifting up versus it being turned over. We're just missing a little bit of that hip being able to come. And if we want to get your foot like Casimir's, be like right there. Boom. But then we can just see how much upper body rotation we sacrificed in order to get that hip to come through a little bit more. We can look at another guy who does some different unique stuff in the beginning to try to really help get those hips out in front. Would be a guy like you, who's really trying to get that hip out in front, but we can see that his body isn't really leaned back all that extra to get something very similar to you, right? These positions right here are rather similar in time. Glove position, head and shoulder, but we can just see how much more you've dipped backwards, dipped behind almost the pitching rubber to get to this position here. And again, like I said, I think because this hip is getting so far out in front of you and your chest is getting so far behind it, that by the time you get to a position like right here, where we'd be able to start to actually drive it, where he's about to drive it, your body has just been so far behind it that it doesn't have the time to kick in this back knee and this back foot to get things to turn over, by the time that front foot hits the ground. To have time to get things turned over by the time the foot hits the ground. But when your foot does turn over, boom, we can see again how much we're sacrificing that upper body's rotation to get that foot to turn over, to get the knee to rotate fully, to get that back hip to start coming forward. Even a guy that's going to be low slot, like Steve Cishek, right? His angle is matching more like your angle. If you just dropped your glove down here and this arm was wrapping back here more, would match more of a Cishek. But we can see Cishek stays in that angle because he throws down in that angle, where you're coming back up and around. Which again, there's tremendous amounts of ability to keep torque and sitting in that hip here. We just don't currently possess the back foot drive explosiveness yet to be able to make that position from that starting position useful. I think your stage A position, if we call this stage A, I think stage A is just too extreme, so that by the time you get to stage B, which is really good, we don't have the ability and the time and the strength in our back leg to make C as good as we could. Versus that right there with a little extra. Now, maybe we can continue doing everything we're doing here and just get this back knee to stay back a little better so it doesn't drift in, drift in, drift in. So that way, when it's time to rotate, we can actually swivel, slam it, drive it inwards to help that foot turn over better on time. That could be an approach. But again, I don't want to take away from what you and Cat Daddy have cooking and the progress you guys are making and his plan of attack with you. But again, something for you to think about, show him, talk about, see what he thinks. That way, you can then come to me in the next couple weeks and let me know what his plan of attack is, what he's thinking, so that way I can kind of try to stay piggybacking off of what he's working with you. He's working with you with. I don't know if that's proper English or not, but I tried. All right, two guys left. Boom and boom. Okay. Did we already do offer? Oh man, I can't remember if I did you, bud. I think we did. Oh man, I'm getting all confused now. I know I have not done lefty. Okay, lefty. From the top. Okay. So good high leg lift like we were saying. Body's going. Front foot strike. A little late on that pause. We can see heel, foot's in. Boom. Back hip's good position. We can see this back foot starting to do that drive and turnover. Drive and turnover. Drive and turnover. Could it do more? Yes. So we could think about trying to keep that front foot off the ground just a little bit longer. to allow that time to happen, or thinking about the process that we're doing with this back foot and back knee occurring maybe just a little bit sooner. So that way it has more time to complete a full movement to here by the time that foot gets flat in the ground versus the foot being flat in the ground here. Just a little bit of extra power we could produce with our lower body. Okay, but if we do take us to the point of time of front foot strike, we can see how that upper body has started to rotate a little bit already. We're trying to keep this back as much as we can, trying to keep as much upper lower half separation as we possibly can. Trying to create as much upper lower half separation as we possibly can. Boom. Right? Your upper body, similar positions to Granke's, minus the fact that yours is slightly rotated. If we got Granke's upper body to where yours is, it'd be probably like here, right? And we can just see how much more how much longer his front foot's been in the ground. Boom, to get to that position versus, oops, your front foot's just now getting in the ground, and that's where we're at. If we got your upper body to where Granke's at, we would have to get more like here, where that logo is still to us. And we can see that your foot just isn't quite yet in the ground at that point in time, and that's why the upper body gets to that rotation by the time it is in the ground. So, if our lower body was a little bit more aggressive, starting with the backside, and it got its foot into the ground maybe just a split second sooner, because this was a little bit more aggressive a little bit sooner, then we could say maybe this upper body would only be more in this position when the lower body is in more of this position, which would then give us more power at the end, which would give us more power at the end. But there's also a lot of good things going on here. The glove path, glove action of how it's swiveling and finishing, the body's coming to it, real good. We can also, we also need to think about locking out that lead leg a little bit. Most of us could get better at doing that. That's just a skill that's going to be a little bit more difficult to do now that we're going downhill. It's just more energy coming, but this is a really good look at it over here with Moran. So keep doing what you're doing. We just need to think more aggressively rotating the backside so we can get just a little bit more rotation at front foot strike. And then once we hit that ground, locking that lead leg out. And then think, foot down on the ground, then rotate my shoulders. Foot down, then rotate my shoulders. And we get you from the top here, Mr. Offer. Good high leg lift. Getting momentum. Our body going to the target. Good job keeping this back knee back. Front foot staying closed, nice and long, until it's time to rotate it. And we can see that just the knee's just a little behind. The knee staying in a little bit. And we can also see that the back foot really does a good job turning over, but it's after the front foot's already in the ground. So we're just missing out on some power production, power potential with our lower half. Because we can see once that foot really does hit the ground, that lower half hasn't rotated as much as we would like it to. But once that foot gets into a good position with that knee starting to stabilize, boom, and that knee doesn't rotate no more, yeah, we're in a really good spot. But we can see, again, where a guy that's had a lot of that upper body has had to come around in order to get to that position where that front leg can be more sturdy and stable for us. Backside, really good. Really good strong here, really good strength here, staying close, staying close. Now it's just, we got to fire it. Done a good job staying closed up to this point. Now it's time to go and rotate. Slam this knee in. Turn this back foot over. Get this back hip starting to go forward. Rip this front knee open. Get this front foot open. So then this hip can get more clearance for the back hip to have more ability to come through. So then we're more here at front foot strike with our lower body, but that upper body is still back here. And that'll help us get that ball downhill better. We're close. There's a lot of good things that we're doing in this delivery. It's just our ability to get a little bit extra velocity, which from here on out, now that we're on the full mound, that's what everyone's always chasing. Little extra velocity, little extra movement, little extra command. And the smoother our bodies flow, the better our command is going to be, because our energy output is in a better direction, which is going to help us command the ball. Again, we're close. We just got to think about rotating feet and knees a little bit more aggressively, earlier or quicker, so that way it can complete its process before that front foot hits the ground.